Hello, everyone. It's 5 o'clock. Hello. When you join, please say hi in the chat. I want to know who's here. Let me know if you can hear me or if you can't, or if you can see me or if you can't. Hi. Woohoo. Yay, you can hear me. I can't be stopped now. Okay. Hooray. I am going to hang out until about 5 after, maybe 10 after, before I get class started. I want people to have an opportunity to come in and get established. When you join, please say hi in the chat if you like. And I'll probably repeat myself a few times while we go through this because this is all new, right? Normally during my lectures, if you have been to a lecture before or if you haven't, I generally tell everybody just be quiet and save the questions till the end. But now we have a chat window. So feel free to throw a question in the chat window. I may stop and address it at the time. I may stop a little later and address it, or I may wait until the end of the class to address the question, but feel free. Yay! Yay! There's so many people here. Oh, freaking sweet, dude. Yay! Mwah, Sky and my drone. So many kisses to you. Ooh. Oh my gosh, and Erica's here, and Ryan is here, and Buddy is here, and Patty is here. Oh my god! And Eva, who's never missed a class in 5 years. Or well, maybe a couple, but not too many. Hi, Emily. It's nice to see you. Hi, Shoshana. Yay! Yay. Cerelia, nice to see you. Yes, feel free to make judicious or not judicious use of the emojis that are provided by YouTube for chat window purposes. Don't get me flagged, for Christ's sake. Hey, someone thumbs up it. Right, awesome. You guys even like it. Cool. Not only just hanging out, but enjoying it. While we're waiting to get ready, I encourage you to get comfy, relax, grab something to drink, light a candle, light a little bit of incense if you want. In fact, I'm going to do that myself right now. It is Aries season. God bless us all. And I'm going to light a little bit of red sandalwood incense. This is super appropriate for Aries vibes, all fire sign vibes, but particularly Aries vibes. This is a scent that is super pleasing to the goddess Durga as well. So there's that. Hello, Miss Jessica. Hello, Susan. Ah! Time and space means nothing to us now because we have the internet. Beeswax candle, which I'll probably whack something into here momentarily. Some spring spray. Woo! I have some raspberry and green tea, sun tea that I made yesterday. Well, the time that we have. And of course, I'm wearing my roses and skulls. Because what other day of my entire life is going to be more appropriate to wear this dress than this one now? So here we are. Add a little extra here. This is my south altar over here behind me, right next to my desk, right where I need the encouragement. And this is a nice beeswax clove candle. So get my microphone out of the way a little bit. You can see it, sort of. I have altars all over my house. Big surprise. Big surprise. All right, a couple more minutes and we will get started. Thank you so much, everyone who has joined. Feel free to say hi in the chat window if you want to. If you don't want to, that's okay too, but we know you're there. We know you're there. And for those who have come to my classes in the past, this is going to be a little bit different, a little bit more relaxed. I am not necessarily going to do the shotgun of information to the face. I may, in fact, put up the 2018 lecture for people to download later, depending on how this one actually turns out, just for folks who want that really intense textbook, I guess, experience. But, you know, times are a little different, so I felt like maybe a slightly different approach to this class was appropriate. We'll see how it all pans out. All right. Like I said, if you need to, go grab something to drink. Get yourself comfy and cozy. Get my buds correct. Light up a doob and have a puff. Have a beverage if you like. I highly recommend taking off any pants that you might have. We will not be standing leg jail. No leg jail today. Pants off. One of the many bonuses of doing this class in this form. Pants off. All right. Let's begin. This is going to go for about 2 hours-ish. If you have somewhere else to be, just take your phone with you. Where are you going? Anyways. It's the whole point, right? Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. This is very unusual, but here we go. I apologize for sound problems. If the internet goes out, somebody send me a text or something like that. I'm on that 5G connection, so I'm hoping that this is going to be smooth sailing. These classes live are normally $30 a piece. If you download it from me, it's normally $15 a piece, and this is totally free. If you want to send me a donation, I really appreciate that. If you don't, that's okay too. I just feel like this information needs to be out in the world. And we'll talk more about that stuff at the end. But why I bring that up is because a portion of the proceeds of all of these classes go to Real Rent Duwamish. I am teaching on unceded Duwamish and Salish territory, and this is an opportunity for us to pay rent. We are in strange times these days, and yet those cats still need financial support as much as I do and as much as anybody else does. So if it's at all possible, know that something is going to go to those cats. Normally it's 5% of all ticket sales, but I'm doing 25% this time just because I can. I don't have any overhead today, so it's not a big deal. Okay, what else? As I said, this class is going to be a little bit different than usual. If you have questions, feel free to throw them up in the chat window. I may get to them immediately. I may get to them later. But we're going to slow things down a little bit, first and foremost, before we jump into all of the stuff. Okay. I am, if it's your first time coming to one of my classes, hi, hello, thank you for joining us. I am a eclectic witch, self-taught. I've never belonged to a coven. I consider myself to be of a tradition of priestesses and witches that go back into the dawn of time, who have heard the call and followed their instinct and sought out information and skills and taught themselves and then made themselves of service to the community. So here I am. I definitely do things a little differently than some folks. So there's that. But I just really feel like this is some important information for us all to work with, and I'm excited about sharing it with you. Okay. Before we begin, and we normally don't do this in my classes, but we are going to do this today, I invite everybody to just come into this space. Let's take a nice deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, out through your mouth. And I'm inviting you to just be here in this space where you are right now. It's pretty amazing that we can be alone and together at the same time. I'm excited about sharing this space. So, in this season, we are stepping into spring. We are stepping into Ostara. And the major themes for witches to work with at this time of year are initiation, shifting from the dark into the light, and setting intention. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. Initiation is something that has been connected to spring equinox for a very long time. A spring equinox has marked the beginning of energetic cycles, or the restarting of energetic cycles, for thousands and thousands of years. We look back through all of the different cultures that sort of think of spring equinox as the beginning of the thing. It really is this idea of initiation and beginning and starting up or restarting up a process or an energetic cycle. And so we see things like birth, opening, starting over, that kind of stuff, all inherently embedded in the type of work that we're doing here at Spring. And then we are talking about shifting from dark to light. And so as we move out of the energetic cycle of winter and into the energetic cycle of spring, we are also leaving behind, astronomically, shorter days and longer nights. Spring equinox marks that point in our orbit around the sun astronomically, where we experience equal night and equal day, basically last night and right now. We're doing that. And then from this point until summer solstice, or Letha, every day will continue to get longer than the night. And at summer solstice, we will experience the very longest day and the very shortest night of the year. And then it will begin to decrease, though the days will continue to be longer than the nights. They'll come back closer and closer again to being balanced or equal to each other, and that will come to a head at fall equinox, or Mabon, and then from that point forward to winter solstice, the nights are longer than the days. So this is the official end point of all of the different deities and archetypes that we work with during all of fall and all of winter. This is where they say goodbye to us, where we kind of leave them at the fork in the road, and we head one direction and they head off in a different direction for 6 months, and we don't work with those energies anymore, or they become very distant to us. And instead, we are welcoming in and we are inviting in all of the deities and archetypes and energies that are growth and production and waking up and opening up and light and progress, anything that's anything going forward or going up or going out. And all of the deities that have those types of mindsets of like, let's go and let's grow. But we want to make sure that at spring equinox, that we are saying thank you and goodbye in a very real way to all of those wintertime entities and deities and archetypes and ancestors and wisdom keepers and all of those beings, all of those entities, all of those wisdom sources that have been getting us through winter, that have been getting us through the challenge of winter. We want to make sure that we say thank you and say goodbye to them and honor them in some way. Honor the work that they did to get us to here, to keep us alive this far. And then we want to turn kind of 180 degrees basically and say hello and welcome to all of these deities and entities and archetypes that are coming in that are youthful and vital. And we'll talk a bit more about the concept of youth, but I certainly in no way mean people that are under a particular physical age, though I do mean them too. But what we're really talking about is, well, we'll get into what we're talking about in just a minute. Okay. And then the third thing that we're really working on at this time of year is setting intention. Okay. And so when we are setting what we're doing right now is we are taking our first steps up and out and into whatever our overworld journey is going to be. We can divide the year in half as an underworld journey and an overworld journey. And we are officially leaving the underworld journey, and we are officially beginning our overworld journey. And so we want to, as much as we can, set some intentions here. And we're going to talk about that. Like, I don't want you to set your intention right now at the beginning of the class. Give it 2 hours. Let me tell you some stuff first. But that's going to be a lot of the work that we're doing over the next 6 weeks, is really kind of getting square with ourselves of like, what are we doing? Where are we going? What's going to happen next? And isn't this certainly an interesting time to have that moment and talk to yourself about it? Okay. All right. And so in alignment with that intention setting, we are seeing life returning to Earth. We are seeing fertility begin in the vegetation around us. I know, of course, that we have our very fun coronavirus that's running around causing havoc here on the planet, but we also have just our regular old allergy season as well. So that energy is here. The plants are talking to us. The plants are definitely saying like, hey, we're ready to go. The sun is coming back. The beautiful breezes are here. We've had 2 months of rain. It's time to grow some stuff. Let's make it happen. So we're seeing the plant world and the natural world sort of come back after the stillness and the freeze of winter. And then we're also seeing a rise in thrust energy. And we're going to talk about that thing over and over again in this class. But we are seeing a surge at this point in the year in thrust energy. Well, what do I mean by that? It's my shorthand term, I guess, probably for what we might have in another time called God energy. Godness, God-NESS, godness, is something that is often contributed only to males or male identifying people. But in fact, it's an energy that all of us have a right and arguably a responsibility to tap into. And it's the thing in us that is extroverted, that is driven, that is determined, that is really like gung-ho, let's make this happen. I'm doing this. I see this thing and I insist it into the world. It's that stuff. And that stuff is really coming out right now. We're going to see it in the vegetation world, and then we're going to see it in the animal world, and we're going to see it in the human worlds as well, where everything suddenly has drive and suddenly has like a I give a shit about this kind of attitude and a let's go, let's make it happen sort of thing. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about that? Everybody's feeling good. Everybody's got their tea and or their weed and or their wine or their natural juices, whatever it is that you're enjoying. My raspberry green tea, so I stay super amped. Okay. Some other names that we know this holiday by, and the what I'm looking down at is this. This big book is available to anybody who bought an entire year's subscription to this course. Otherwise, you would get just a single book of it. And I also shared this with everybody on my Patreon who is at the $9 level and up. You can download this PDF and the weekly guides and work with them if you want. Otherwise, I'll just show it to you on camera and you'll have to figure it out. Okay. Wait, is it backwards? All right. Magic. Okay. Alternative names for this holiday. One of the most popular ones, we call it Ostara here in the witchcraft, pagan, heathen, Wicca community. I would say that Ostara is probably the most common name amongst a lot of those folks. There's various spellings of that, but I'd say that's probably the most common name. But Ladies' Day is another very common name amongst folk craft, pagan-y type heathen groups. And this is named in honor of the goddess in all of her aspects. For some, this is hailing the departure of winter goddesses. And for others, this is a welcoming in of spring goddesses. And still for others, it's a witnessing of the miraculous transformation the goddess goes through as she changes from crone to maiden. Now, this is a really important element, in my opinion. The way that I was originally shown this concept of the triple goddess and how it was explained to me was that you have the maiden, who is the youth, you have the mother, who's sort of middle age, and then you have crone, who is the old woman unto death. However, as we dig into a lot of these goddess-oriented holidays that happen around spring equinox, we see that what is actually happening is the crone is changing forward into the maiden. She's not changing backwards into being a little girl. She's changing forward into being a youthful maiden again. And I think that that's a very important point because in a very real way, when we humans come out of winter and we go into spring, we could say that we metaphorically die. We could say that we may experience some type of a spiritual death or even a psychological death. Maybe we go through some sort of initiation rite or whatever. We don't physically die. Most of us don't anyways. Most of us hang out. It's still us. It's just, we're just a year older and that's it. And yet there is very much this insistence of coming back to whatever might be thought of in us as youthful or naive or maybe a little precious or curious, inquisitive, playful, that thing. And there's a really important metaphor here to me of the idea that you can always go back to that or go forward into that place again. You still are you still know the things that you know and you've had the experiences that you've had, but there is this renewing of that and a renewal that brings you into a place of, sure, I've experienced some hardships and I've experienced some really gnarly things that have maybe made me a bit cynical, but I'm going to shed my cynicism today and I'm going to come into this new stage of growth and this new time of year and this new energetic cycle as if I've never been here before, as if this is my very first time, as if I don't know any better. And it's just a really, it's difficult, especially in our world right now where we have lots of stuff coming at us that's saying like, you better pay attention, there's danger afoot and we need to be calling on all of our resources to handle this. And in the face of that, I think we also really need to, okay, here's a place where I'm actually going to get away from the material a little bit in a way that I wouldn't have in the class. In the current situation that's happening in our country and in our world right now, this pandemic that we are experiencing, we absolutely need a new way. We absolutely need a new attitude and a new paradigm to kind of sink into our minds. We have a lot telling us to be fearful, to shut down, to go with what is traditional, what's already known, to go with what's already been tested to be true, all of that stuff, except that those systems are part of what's gotten us to this point of fear and crisis in the first place. And I'm not saying that this is going to be an easy transition. I'm not saying that it's going to be a walk in the park or, popping bottles of champagne necessarily. But it is, to me, sort of a clarion call of, hey, something is seriously wrong with this, and we need to find a way to go forward in a new way. And we need to believe and have hope that this change and this transition can actually happen and will be good and should be happening. And no, we don't know everything that we need to know. And yeah, we can figure it out. We're gonna make this. We're gonna do it. We're gonna figure it out. Will we make mistakes? Absolutely. But we have to experiment. We have to try, because looking at what we already know, looking at what tradition is, and looking what's already established for us, this isn't necessarily doing it, sis. Like, it's not really working out. So very much so, we are standing at the precipice of the unknown, and very much so, we have to hold our chin high and put our shoulders back and say to ourselves, we can figure this out. And it definitely includes something that we don't know yet. It definitely includes something that we can't see right now. So we literally have to push into the unknown bravely. And as we take those very first steps into that process, we need to be setting our core intentions with ourselves. What do I want? What do I need? But in the sense of, like, not just in the immediate, not in the next 5 minutes. Sure, yeah, that too. But what would I hope to come out of all of this? Like, if I could just have it exactly the way I wanted it, what beautiful utopia might I hope for? And then, how close can we get to that realistically? That we have a really potent magical opportunity right now to align this stuff that's happening in our world with this magical moment, this astronomical moment, this energetic moment, and to really bring them all into one cauldron and stir them up and drink that stew, drink that brew. Okay. All right. Some other names for this holiday. I know I'm just switching gears, going right back into the meat. Okay. Take a drink, shake it off. Whoo, stretch it out. Okay. Alban Eiler is the name that the Druids use for spring equinox, and it means the light of the earth. And so this is them acknowledging that the sun deities and the potency of the sun is coming back and, like, coming to the fore and surging into effect. The name Ostara itself is probably was used by Teutonic and German pagans, dedicated, specifically referring to a multi-day holiday that celebrated the goddess Esther, or Oster. That is spelled Eostre. Sorry. And there is a lot of conjecture, or maybe coulda, woulda, around how did the name Ostara get its name? Is it dedicated to this god Esther? Is it connected to Astarte or Ishtar? Maybe. That's the big answer. For a long time, it was just a pat answer of Ostara was directly connected to Ishtar, full stop, we're done. But some Cyrillic and Eastern European linguists, in fact, that's not even actually correct, it's like Indo-Aryan European, have just been doing word research and following things backwards through time. And they now think that Easter, Esther, Ostara, all potentially were one being. And Ishtar may have actually come out of it, or may have been a deity that was synchronous and happening at the same time. Until we get more witches, more people of color, more queers involved with archaeology, we will have the stories that old, insecure white Christian men tell us about the past. So, no pressure, but pick up a shovel. Let's go. Okay. Some more names that we will find of holidays and festivals happening at this time of year and in the next 6 weeks. Summer finding, also known as Zomersblot, that's Norse. Asatru heathens will celebrate this holiday. That happens on 4/14. And it's actually a 2-ish week holiday that leads up to Beltane. And for them, this is the beginning of summer. We're done with spring. Boom, it's summertime now. And for some of those cats, they literally just divide the year in half. There's the summertime and the wintertime, and that's plenty. Idun's Day is another holiday that we see at this time of year, and that's, of course, dedicated to the goddess Idun with her golden apples. Sheila Nagig's Day also happens at this time of year. That was on 3/18. So just a couple of seconds ago, she is one of those goddesses that we think of that is a hag, a crone, who represents that wisdom, that sometimes that cynicism, but that real salty, like, bitch, I've seen all of this. I don't even care. Super unfazed. Thanks for checking in. That was, she had her day just a couple days ago. So she's a great archetype of those goddesses that we're saying thanks and goodbye to. And Maslenitsa, otherwise known as Plowing Day, is coming up here in just a second, and that's a Slavic holiday. Okay, so talking about that balance of light and dark, I just want to point at this really quick. I know it's backwards, but just look at the shapes. This big bar here represents goddess energy, because what is the joke I always make? She's a monolith. Okay. This is my, I've copyrighted this, so don't even try. / I'm taking applications for graphic designers. This sea monster creature here represents the rise and fall in God or solar energy every year. Now, I really like this graphic because we often think of, I developed this graphic, or I copied it, I made it myself, but it is based on an original image from The Witch's Bible Complete by Janet and Stuart Farrar. And why I like this is because we often think of goddess and god energy. We think of goddess energy as waxing and waning. We often connect it with the moon and watery things, which is true and accurate in plenty of paradigms. But we think of her as coming and going, fluid, can take many shapes, all of this stuff. And we think of the sun and solar energy and that yang energy as just this constant thrust, this constant like surge. However, in a lot of these, hey, it's not backwards. Yay, thank you. In a lot of these systems, what we're actually looking at is the consistency of the goddess. She's changing shape, but her energy is always consistently there. Versus the sun, its energy is really, really potent at summer solstice, It's really, really weak at winter solstice, and it's kind of waxing and waning the rest of the time. It's coming and going the rest of the time. So I really like this graphic to display that concept of like her consistency, or the goddess consistency, and then the inconsistency, or the surging, and then the ebbing and flowing really of the solar energy. Is there anything else I wanted to say about that? Reminder to anybody, please feel free to throw up a question in the chat window if you have one. I may get to it now. I may get to it later. Okay. The goddess arc. So that's what we're experiencing here. The goddess completes her transformation and becomes the embodiment of youthful springtime energy. Reborn, they are radiant and dynamic and curious. The sun continues to rise in power under the mantle of the Oak King. Some groups hail this as the return of the Green Man. What up? This is the start of his annual surge and fall of power, which peaks at Letha, summer solstice, and culminates at Mabon, fall equinox. We already talked about that. All right. Am I going to talk about the first page for an hour this time and then race through everything else? No, I'm not. We're going to move on a little bit. I know. Be proud of me. Be proud. Okay. The next thing we're going to go to, if you have a book with you or the PDF in front of you, we're going to skip forward a couple of pages to the astronomy. I'm going to talk a little bit about the astronomy of this time of year. I would recommend that no matter how it is that you have come to this material, no matter what it is that has attracted you to this path of study, sink deeply into the astronomy of it. The astrology, sure, and we're going to get to that in a minute. The astronomy of it all. The astronomy of it all. In my opinion, this is the basis of a lot of the rest of this stuff. It's sort of the bedrock upon which all of these other myths and folk tales and archetypes and entities and prayers and dances and songs and everything has all been built on top of it to try to, in my opinion, explain from one generation to the next what's happening in the sky and how to use it as a giant clock for what's happening here on the planet. And it changes over time. And so that was a science that had to be developed and understood as well. It's complicated. When you go to read about the precession of the equinoxes or the zodiacal precession, it will be more confusing at first. So you'll probably have more questions than answers at first, but it is worth it. I do recommend it. And just let the information come and present itself to you. Take what makes sense. Don't worry about the stuff that doesn't make sense. Come back and read it again. Come back and read it again. And just let it kind of settle in over time for you. That's my recommendation about it. Okay. Astrology and natural phenomena. Okay. During March, which we're almost done with, I was going to teach this class 8 days ago. So, full moon names that we experience at this time of year. During March, we have names like the chaste moon, the crust moon, crow moon, sap moon, sugar moon, budding moon, sleepy moon, death moon, moon when eyes are sore from bright snow. I love that. It's so specific. Windy moon, fish moon, Lenten moon, of course, connecting to Lent. And we'll get to the global holidays in a little bit. Normally, we would have jumped into that next, but we'll get to it soon. Big thing here to remember is that during March, wherever your full moon is and whatever it's being called in whatever region of the world you're in, it's going to be near the stars of Virgo or Libra, no matter what. It's always going to be near those. So, you know that, and we'll get deeper into this with the astrology and the global holidays. You know that during March, there's going to be a little bit of emphasis astrologically with Virgo stuff and Libra stuff, no matter what, just is. Okay. And then as we move through April, we have full moon names like full pink moon, sprouting grass moon, fish moon, hare moon, Paschal moon, which of course connects to Pasach or Passover, the peony moon, planter's moon, wildcat moon, moon when geese return in scattered formation. Very specific. These really long names often come from Algonquin Native American tribes. In fact, a lot of the full moon names that we use here in America actually come from Native American tribes. Big surprise, right? I know. But then a lot of other traditional names from Europe are in here as well. We have some Buddhist names for moons as well. So these are moon names that you will find all over the Northern Hemisphere from various traditions. And then when we are in April, the month of April, the full moon or full moons, because obviously we know some moons have, or some months have 2 full moons, they are going to be near the stars of Libra and Scorpio. Okay, so in March, we have some emphasis on Virgo and Libra, and then or we have our full moons happening near Virgo or Libra, and then in April, we have our full moons happening near Libra or Scorpio. And the last full moon of winter is called the worm moon, no matter when it happens. Whatever that last full moon is before the spring equinox occurs, whatever that was, it's called the worm moon. For us, the last full moon that we had this year was a Virgo super moon on March 9th. So that would have been the worm moon. Okay. Let's talk briefly about our constellations and our fixed stars and other astronomical events that we're going to experience at this time of year. Everybody okay? Like I said, ask questions in the chat if you need to. Did I miss a chat? No, it's just tons of people telling me I'm awesome and saying hello. So I appreciate that. Okay. We are moving through the constellations in... Okay, this is where things get complicated. I'm not even going to... Just stuff. We are moving through the constellations of Pisces and Aries. And the fixed stars that I think are the most important to focus on as we move through Pisces are Alpherg, that's Alphperg, and the other name for that star is the cord or pouring water, and Alrescha, Al and then Rescha. Like my accent there? I don't know why I rolled my R so aggressively, but enjoy that. And then the third fixed star that I think is really important is Fum al Samaka, and that's FUMALSAMAKAH. Last one again, I'll read that again. SAMAKAH, Fum al Samaka, and this is the mouth of the fish. The constellation of Pisces is imagined in the sky as 2 fish that are tied together by a rope or a string at their tails, and they're both leaping in separate directions. And if anybody has ever known a Pisces, okay. And I think that these guys are important fixed stars. Unfortunately, in the scope of this class, we can't talk about all of exactly why they're really cool, but do some research on fixed stars on your own. Read about these stars and find out when they're going to, or if they show up in your chart or something along those lines, or when they're going to rise. And then the other constellation that we're working through is, another name for the constellation of Pisces is the fishes or the dolphin, but it's also referred to as Typhon or Tiamat. And there's a really cool mythical link there when we think of Pisces as being the 12th sign or ruling the 12th house in astrology and being the last sign that we go through in winter. And so it's the very end of the astrological run before the new energetic cycle starts again. There is an interesting connection there of Typhon and Tiamat representing these old eras and these old forms of goddesses or old forms of paradigms and being killed off by the new sparkling, shiny, aggressive. In this case, it's Marduk. So that thing that here's the ending and then here's the beginning. We're going to get into some other really cool Pisces and Typhon and Tiamat symbolism a little bit later in the class. Okay. And then we have Aries. This is also known as the Ram. This constellation is also known as Spring Bringer, and that is from its time of marking the spring equinox. And some fixed stars that I think are important for you to work with during the Aries season are Hamal, which is the horn star, Sheratan, a signal fire, Mesarthim, the tripod, and Barani. And we'll talk about what Barani means in just a second. Okay, so we have the horn star, a signal fire, and the tripod. That is because the constellation of Aries has not always been imagined as a ram. It was, and still is in some places, imagined as a three-legged brass censer, basically, that holds a bowl of fire. And so it's a lamp or this sort of altar fire. That lamp is also sometimes in some depictions of the constellation seen on the head of Aries, the ram. And that's interesting because Aries rules the face and the head. The first house is all about the countenance and how we present the first impression. And so we also here have a really cool, and I guess, yeah, it's always like, I'm like, do I talk about this now, later? Oh, Pisces rules the feet of the body. And so we also have a very interesting image of the very bottom of the being, and then the top and the front and face, the very first thing of the being. Yeah, my mind kind of goes wild with the symbolism and the ways that those things can be worked with, and how they bleed into each other. And there's some really cool stuff there. So go down that rabbit hole. Go. Okay. Other events astronomically that are happening at this time of year. From April 16th to April 25th, we will have the Lyrids meteor showers. We've been kind of without any kind of reasonable or mentionable meteor showers for some time now. So this is kind of the first one after several months. And it will be a waning moon during that time period. So if it's good weather wherever you are, you'll have about a week to go outside and try to get a good shot in the sky of what's going on. Find nasa.com or, one of those weather.com or whatever. They'll tell you like what angle of the sky you should be looking at. Should you look south? Should you look west? That sort of thing. But the reason why it's called the Lyrids is because it will appear as if the shooting stars are coming from or coming out of the constellation of the Lyrids. So if you have a sky searcher on your phone, you can also just find the Lyrids constellation and know that stuff is coming from that. Okay. The Eta Aquarids meteor showers are also happening around this time of year, and I totally forgot to write down the dates, so you have to look them up yourself. Haha. And then the heliacal rise of Deneb Al-Gedi. This is another fixed star. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this for just a second. Heliacal risings of fixed stars are this, plus also look this up because I'll probably get something wrong. What is happening is the star is rising on the eastern horizon 45 minutes to an hour-ish, hour and a half-ish before the sun. So if you're facing east, it's a little bit before dawn. You should be seeing this fixed star rising on the eastern horizon, and then the sun comes up right behind it and washes it out. That's considered to be the heliacal rising of the sun. What's fun about that? Well, the sky moves, so if we're looking at a date on a calendar, we're not necessarily going to get it correct because that stuff is changing over time. Where you are on the planet affects when you will observe this rising. If you're close to the equator, it'll happen earlier. If you're really high up on top of a mountain, it happens earlier. If you are closer to a pole, it happens later. If you are living at a really low altitude and close to sea level or below sea level, you will see it later. So, charting things by heliacal risings in terms of being like super accurate to the second, good luck on that. Even the ancients had a hard time doing that, but they would have people sit up and wait and see every morning or every night, do we see the star yet? And then a blast would come out, and that village would begin to, or that city would begin to do their celebrations that were based on that heliacal rising. So the rising that I'm focusing us on here is Deneb Al-Gedi. And this star is actually at the very, very end of, or it's thought to be at the end of Capricorn. It's in Aquarius, actually. That's how far back we are with the precession of the equinoxes. And again, there's not enough scope to this class, unfortunately, for me to really get into all of that. But why I think it's important is this. Because this is happening at the same time as Saturn stepping into Aquarius for just a moment. And Deneb Al-Gedi is a sign that augurs fortune and favor for benevolent rulers that are dedicated to the health and the safety and the well-being of the masses, of the people. So today, tomorrow, and the next day-ish, and maybe even a day or two into the future, we could say that we are experiencing the heliacal rising of Deneb Al-Gedi right now. And Saturn stepping into Aquarius, which can be a very altruistic, humanistic sign. To me, I think that there's just a really awesome and potent magical opportunity for us right now to do spellcrafting, to do ritual, to do journaling, to do focused meditation, whatever works for your paradigm. If you're an atheist, this is just, call your senators, call them again. But if there was ever a time to do magic around our leaders and leaders that we might want to be in charge, or whoever ends up in charge, could they at least keep these things in mind? This might be a really great time to do it. And I try not to get, I was just about to say, I try not to get too political in these classes. That is a lie. That is a lie. I definitely do. So there's some more. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm not telling you who to believe in. But what I'm saying is that today would be a really great day to send, or in the next few days, to send some new springtime budding energy of, why not this? Let's try this. What about these seeds? Maybe you could plant these things, in terms of benevolent rulers that have the well-being of the populace and the masses in mind, and in particular protecting those people and asking for benevolence from other sources of wisdom to come to them and give them help and give them answers. Okay. I know we're talking about astronomy. Yeah. All right. The other cool thing that's happening at this time of year, this happens February, March, and April. And then it also happens around fall equinox, but it's not as striking. This is a fantastic time of year to witness the glow of the zodiacal light. And I highly recommend looking up this light phenomenon. This is something that, again, you want to get away from cities, as if you were going to do, meteor shower viewing or anything like that. You want to get out where there's as little light pollution as possible. And what you will see just before dawn is it's actually not just before dawn, it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours, even maybe 3 hours before dawn, is a faint, but as your eyes adjust, very, very obvious glowing white pyramid of light in the sky. Really, not joking. It's not epic. It's not like Luxor Casino is floating in the sky. It's not Giza Plateau floating in the sky. At least the photographs that I saw, it's not that intense. But it is a silvery glow of two lines that kind of come together like this in the sky. And what you're seeing is the glow of the zodiacal plane of our solar system and all the dust and the bits that are floating out there in space on the plane that all of us planets, most of us planets anyways, are rolling through. That's what it is. And so as we near spring equinox, I don't remember exactly the degrees, but we're perfectly perpendicular to it at one time of year, and we're perfectly parallel to it at the other time of year. And I just think it's really incredible that there's this sort of X pyramid shaped thing glowing in the sky at this time of year, or at any time of year. But this was something that the ancients would have seen all the time, right? Because they wouldn't have experienced the same type of light pollution that we did. So there also would have been this great, road or X mark or cross or pyramid shaped thing just hanging out in the sky for a couple of months. No big deal. Okay. Look up more on zodiacal light if that is something that you would like to try to witness at this time of year, this is the time of year to do it. Like I said, it also happens in fall equinox, but if I remember what I read about it, it's easier at this time of year than it is then. Okay. So now that we've talked about the importance of these constellations, the importance of these fixed stars, and the importance of these full moons, now I am going to go back to the page called The Global Context, and we are going to talk about other belief systems and philosophies and traditions that are having festivals and holidays at this time of year. Thank you, Ryan. Call your goddamn senators. I mean, you're home all day. What else are you doing with your life? Go. Be a menace to government like no other time. Be a menace now. Now is the time before they cut off the phones. JK, that's not going to happen. Okay. All right. As we look around the globe and throughout time, we see cultures all over the Northern Hemisphere participating in rituals and festivals celebrating fertility, initiations, and rejoicing at the return of life during this quarter holiday. This is the first time in several months that witches might begin to participate in any kind of fertility magic. It has not been the right time of year for fertility magic. So if you need to bring some fertility magic in, or fertility magic is something that you really resonate with, gung-ho, the gates are open. Help yourself. All right. We've talked about initiations already, and we've talked about rejoicing at the return of life already. So there's really nothing else. No, okay. Holidays that we are experiencing right now between March 15th and the 21st or 22nd-ish. The Oshosi Hunter Festival from Yoruba. This is... for those of you who got a PDF, check the calendar. There's some information there, but there is a calendar page for you where there's the next 7 weeks of spring. So the Oshosi Hunter Festival is a rite of initiation for young men in some Yoruba land traditions. And it is an initiation process and a rite of passage that is acknowledging everybody who has hit a particular age. And it's inducting a lot of them into a warrior status, even if that's just a metaphor, even if that's just symbolically. Some of them will get a sacred weapon, or they make their first weapon during this time period. Some of them will experience markings. There's usually like a process of having to go and kill something and come back and all of that good stuff. And it sits very happily with our Aries warrior symbolism that we work with in astrology at this time of year. What else are we seeing at this time of year? Again, this is the week of or around the actual equinox itself. Dumuzi or Tamuzi returns from the underworld. So that's the Ishtar, Ereshkigal underworld journey myth that we see. Towards the end of that myth, she sends her male consort down to the lands of the dead, and he takes her place and chills out there for the rest of winter. And this is the time where he comes back up to Earth. Dumuzid, Tamuzi, Dumuzi, however it's spelled, those were all vegetation gods from that Assyrian, Babylonian, Sumerian era of humanity. So they've been dead. They're coming back from their underworld journey. Akitu Feast of Marduk. We mentioned Marduk. He rolled in and killed Tiamat Typhon, that Pisces jam that we were just talking about. Side note, Tiamat was a massive serpent who held the world in her coils like a clutch of eggs and kept order here in the universe. It kept the evil out and kept the good in. And then Marduk killed her. So thanks for that, Marduk. It's turning out fine here. We're great. So If you could get Tiamat on the horn, get her back into the process, maybe that'd be super. Okay. But if you'd like to raise a glass to that guy, it's time. We also see the beginning of a series of holidays that will continue all the way through Letha, actually, all the way into summer solstice season. And it kicks off with holidays like Tea and Tefi Day from Ireland, the Feast of Yara and Lada from Slavic paganism, and a bunch of others. And what they are is holy marriages. A lot of these characters, these archetypes or entities that we're working with that are male, female, or opposing forces in the universe, are very youthful and playful and childlike at this time of year. As we see these sacred marriages happening over and over. Yeah, you know what's up. Sorry. As we see these sacred marriages happening over and over again, extending through spring equinox season and into Beltane season and then into Letha season, we see the maturity level of those archetypes grow. And so they are now, it's almost like kids that are going through the motions of stuff. And then later on in Beltane season, we're actually seeing like older teenager into adult forms of these deities doing these sacred marriages and bringing the fertility in. But as I said, for now, what we're really seeing is a big emphasis of fertility in the natural world. When we roll into Beltane season in another 6 to 7 weeks, we will see the fertility in the human world ramped way, way up. I don't know if you've ever been here for spring, but people lose their minds. So, okay. Another thing that's happening at this time of year, the feast of water spirits, east and spring from Taoist folk, and then the spring harvest from Egyptian folk from back in the day. And that was because of the growth cycle, because of where Egypt is in the world. They have a lot of cereal crops that grow for them all through winter, and they are doing a massive harvest at spring, and then everything starts to really, really dry out. And as summer season kicks in for ancient Egyptians, it's like hot and crazy and really intense. And then in the ancient world, obviously we're talking 5-ish thousand years ago, around the middle of July, the Nile would have crested its banks and began to flood the Nile Delta, and then all the ground is soaked and the whole growing season can begin again. Okay. Some other holy days that are happening at this time of year. And this is anywhere from sort of the beginning of March 9th, March 10th is when the calendar starts, all the way through April 20th, 25th. We see Proserpina returning from the underworld. That's the Roman version of Aphrodite or Persephone or Kore. She's got a few different names, returning from her underworld experience, aka the Eleusis or Eleusinian mysteries. There is a mini mysteries, the lesser mysteries that happen at this time of year. And it's a little festival welcoming her back from the underworld. Again, the myth around that is in some forms quite problematic. But you'll have to tune in for that part of the myth several months from now because I'm not going to teach it right now. But Demeter is receiving back her daughter, and we are receiving back the abundance and the bounty of nature, and its energetic cycles are beginning again as Kore or Persephone or Proserpina returns from her underworld journey back here to the overworld. Hanuman Matsuri is a Shinto Buddhist holiday that happens at this time of year, and it is the feast of the divine couple. And so again, we're seeing that thing happen over and over and over again. The divine couple being two entities that represent polar opposites to each other coming together and doing a thing to make a third thing. side note, a lot of Wicca and paganism, not all of it, is really based in or heavily influenced by a duality paradigm, a this, that, black, white, male, female. But it is certainly not the only paradigm. And there are plenty of magical paradigms, pagan, heathen, and otherwise, that recognize way more than two and work with them in their turn. So we may have the duality of the god and goddess, but we also have the triplicity of the three faces of the goddess. And we have the quintessence of bringing in earth, air, fire, water. That's 4 plus spirit, 5. So these are all magical paradigms that we get to play with and work with and move into and out of. No one really rules any over any other, but I think that some paradigms are better at describing things than others, maybe is a good way to put it. Other holidays that we are experiencing at this time of year, Easter. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. It's a really big deal with Christians. It's got something to do with chocolate and eggs and rabbits, plastic, grass. Yeah. Purim, also happening at this time of year, which is the Jewish festival celebrating life. And what's interesting with Purim is it is a moving holiday, just like Easter. And it is highly influenced by lunar synchronicity. I don't think that's a word. By lunar patterns. And so we are experiencing Purim during Ostara season this year, but you can experience Purim during Imbolc season. It can come really, really early, and it can actually still be Imbolc season when we are experiencing Purim. This year, it's during Ostara. But it is a traditional Jewish festival that celebrates life and happiness and joy and the bounty of God and all of that good stuff. Passover also happens at this time of year, which is another celebration, a Jewish celebration dedicated to spring and a bunch of other stuff. And that is a Jewish holiday that can sometimes overlap with Beltane season. So it can come really late in the season some years. And again, it depends on what is happening with the moon, the cycles of the moon. St. Patrick's Day also, we can just put St. Patrick in the same category as Marduk. He was a dude that was really excited about his fancy sword and needed to like come and get a snake. And he waved his sword around a whole lot, and all the snakes in Ireland disappeared. There were no snakes in Ireland. So what was that a metaphor for? Tiamat. Anyways, drinking and shamrocks. So thanks, St. Patrick. St. Patrick echoes myths like St. George and the Dragon, and other myths that we see where we have a really fancy shining light solar type of archetype or entity coming in and killing off the spooky darkness thing. Of course, how you sit with that paradigm, who's shiny and happy and who is evil and not sparkly, that's right, which team are you actually on? So thanks, St. Patrick. Okay, some other holidays that are happening at this time of year. Right now, in Persian communities all around the world, we are experiencing Nowruz, which is New Year's. Na, N-A-W, it's spelled a bunch of different ways, means new, and ruse means day or year. Boom. But relates back to a word that actually means light. So what you're really saying is new light. And we've talked about that symbolism already, right? It's the new beginning of the solar energetic cycle. This holiday has been observed by Persian folk for over 3,000 years on the day of the vernal equinox, regardless of what the calendar says. This is a holiday that is dictated by the movement of the sun. This is New Year's Day for many people of the Middle East. So it's a really cool, it's a beautiful holiday. Feasting is a really big deal. And dyeing eggs red is a really big deal. And again, those cats have been doing this for over 3,000 years. Interesting. Wonder who else might have been influenced by that. Okay. Another holiday that's already taken place but is really important at this time of year is Holi, Holi. This is the Hindu Festival of Colors, and this actually happened on 3/9, 3/10, March 9th, March 10th, because it aligned with the full moon in Virgo. It is, again, another holiday that is dictated by the lunar cycles. I do believe that it happens on the Virgo full moon every year, no matter when that shows up. But this is the Festival of Colors, celebrating spring and the triumph of good over evil, where people party in the streets, showering each other in colored powders, and flower petals. Lord Krishna was in love with Radha, but was ashamed of his blue skin. His mother suggested he smear a little bit of blue powder on her skin to make him feel better. We can talk about passive-aggressive male communication situation, but whatever. This festival features very little in the way of prayers and is focused on having fun and cutting loose. One of the more traditional things, obviously, if you haven't, check out the internet. It's packed with photos of people celebrating Holi, not just in India. It's becoming a global springtime festival. And it really is about getting out and having fun and getting loose in the streets. Might be a little difficult to do with the COVID-19 situation of all of us being in our homes, but put some food coloring in some flour, get in the bathtub, and just have at it, go for it. Or do it in the kitchen or wherever you want to vacuum, I guess. But drinking bang is a really popular thing during Holi as well. And bang is a delicious beverage that's made out of warmed coconut milk mixed with a copious amount of keef, cannabis powder. And the idea is that you get ripped. So there you go. And then you're covered in colors and nobody can recognize anybody, and it's a great time. Okay. Some other holidays that are happening at this time of year. 3/15, this just happened in Japan. Honan Matsuri. This is one of my absolute favorite holidays that happens every year. It is totally freaking ridiculous. And it really, in my opinion, sums up a lot of the energy of what we're talking about in these very first couple of days and weeks of spring. Goofy, ridiculous, rambunctious. Let's go. Okay. Honan Matsuri. This festival, dedicated to prosperity, yeah, right, is held in a little prefecture of Japan, 3 hours north of Osaka. Those who turn up get turned up with probably drunk Shinto priests jamming on musical instruments and passing out all-you-can-drink sake from gigantic barrels. Once the crowds are lit, the real show begins. The priests haul forth an 8-foot, 600-pound phallus and parade it through the village to the cheers of the festival goers. This is all real and true. Look it up. At some point, it is spun furiously before being set down and prayed over. And then rice cakes shower everyone. I'll give you a moment. I mean, what is happening with life? That's the old-time religion that I want brought back. That's what I'm talking about, people. Come on. That is so good. Shinto Buddhists, they know what's up. Get everybody ripped, swing your dick around. People are into it. Okay. And then another festival that I want to talk about that happens at this time, or happened this time of year during the ancient world, is the Megalesia. Thank you. I know, right? Exactly. We're commanded to get drunk on Purim too. Haul a goat into the temple, wine spilled on the floor, 0 shits given. We're celebrating life, goddammit, if it kills us. Another energy to definitely summon right now. Okay. The Megalesia. This is the cycle of Sybil and Attis. This multi-day ceremony comes from the ancient Phrygians who lived where Turkey is now. I'm going to have a giant piece up on my website soon. in the next week or two about this festival, going way, way, way back 10,000-ish years, talking about this festival and the deities involved with it. This was available initially for my patrons a year ago, and y'all will get it for free on my website now. Okay, this multi-day ceremony comes from the ancient Phrygians who lived where Turkey is now. Worshipped as Mother Mountain, Sibyl or Kybel was an all-mother goddess depicted with a city on her head. The god Attis was her youthful, free-spirited consort who died and was reborn as an evergreen. Her temple in Rome was massive. And I want to kind of take a second with this. Her priests, also called Attis, would flagellate or castrate themselves as an offering to her. This ritual with her and her priests took place at this time of year every year. It was a week-long ritual, and her holy items were taken out of the temple and paraded down to the river, escorted by this collection of armed priestesses called corybantes that would scream and shout and clash their weapons and swords together, making the loudest, most frightening cacophony possible to scare people away from the procession and these holy items. And they would take them to the river Tiber and wash them and bring them back up to the temple. And this is the version of that we have from Rome. And what's interesting about that, as a side note, is the Romans, who we think of as ancient, were copying rituals that for them were anywhere from 4,000 to 7,000 years old. So they even were looking incredibly far back into time to try to piece this ritual together and piece this festival together in the best way they knew how. Kybel, who was, like I said, called Mother Mountain, was represented by a massive meteor. We know that there are a few other religions that potentially or do use a massive meteor as their be-all, end-all symbol of deity, or the closest thing that you're going to get on Earth, kind of a thing. And at some point, the Sibylline priestesses in Rome commanded this flanks of soldiers to head out into the middle of Turkey or Anatolia and find this rock. And they did, and they brought it back to the temple. I think it took them 12 years or something like that to build a temple good enough for Kybel. And it was this giant goddess sculpture with the meteor for her head. So we know that she was represented by this massive rock, and called Mother Mountain, and sometimes depicted with a turret or a city on her head. What is wildly interesting, there's way more cool stuff to talk about her, but we don't have time. So read the piece when it's on my site. But her temple was massive. And we know now, thanks to digs that have happened in Rome and that area, that her Attis priests would have had their area nearby the temple, and another set of priestesses that served her were known as the Melissae or Melissa, or the beekeeper priestesses, had their headquarters nearby. And this entire area is now where the Vatican stands, dedicated to St. Peter. St. Peter's Basilica is here. And of course, St. Peter is Petra, rock. So if that doesn't piss you off, get mad. But there is really a wild turn there of power and subversion of goddess energy, and what at one time was this area where all of these people were coming to worship and recognizing this power, and just flip the whole thing and put a penis on it. All right. I'm sure it'll be fine. And then towards the end of April, April 14th this year, this is a holiday that does move. Oh yes, bottoms up indeed. Hanuman Jayanti. This is a beautiful Hindu festival that happens all over India and lots of other Hindi civilizations or Hindi cultures around the planet. Very popular. Celebrating the god Hanuman. He is a powerful protector and warrior. Hanuman is above all praised for his fierce devotion to Lord Rama. Read his myth. It's in the Rig Veda, Bhagavad Gita. I think it's in the Bhagavad Gita. The myth of Hanuman and his service to, it's in the Rig Veda, sorry, his service to Lord Rama. It is absolutely a beautiful, beautiful love story between these two entities. But again, we have that insistence of Aries energy, warrior energy here in Hanuman Jayanti festival. Anybody else? No. All right. We talked about dick spinning. All right, good. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about the astrology a little bit. If anybody needs to stand up and stretch, do it, because you are not disturbing anybody in class right now. Help yourself. Take a puff, take a drink, whatever you like. Make sure you light some incense. Maybe I'll light a little more incense just to get us through the end of class. Oh, I just love this red sandalwood. It smells so good. It is not sweet or balsam-like at all. It almost smells like food. It almost has a like garlic, onion, body odor kind of scent, and I really love it. It's really wonderful. So now you know a few things about me. All right. Okay. Let's talk about the astrology of this time period a little bit. And then we're going to talk about my tarot recommendations and some other stuff. Okay. The astrology of this time period. The sun leaves Pisces. And the sun has left Pisces. Today is the first day. Yesterday, today is the first days, hours of Aries season. So we're completely out of that. But most years, I feel like Piscean energy really plays a big part in a lot of the symbolism that we have in springtime and Ostara season. I don't feel it as much this year, but I did keep this information in the book for you just so that you have a complete picture. Okay. As the wetness of spring connects everyone, feelings begin to wake up and help us turn away from the infinite cosmos and toward the physical world. And we had our new moon in Pisces at the end of February, and then we had our full moon in Virgo on March 9th. And for me, that really kind of kicked off Ostara season this year. So not a whole lot of Pisces in there, but some. About 10 days worth of Pisces energy. And we're just in the first few hours of coming out of it. So maybe this will help you reflect on how the last couple of weeks were for yourself. The full moon in Virgo, we are checking in on who we are tied to, who we have obligations to, and what threads of fate we are choosing and how we are being of service. I don't know if that underlines some things for you from the last couple of weeks, but definitely a really powerful conversation about who we are tied to, who are we connected to, in what ways are we connected, are we connecting, and where can we be of service, where can we help, and then to be very frank, Virgo is cleans and wants to organize neurotically sometimes. And so I think that Virgo full moon that we just experienced for the last 2 weeks maybe brought in a little bit of that energy as well, and brought in a little bit of that insistence as well of like, clean it, put it where it's supposed to go, keep it organized. Oh my God. Okay. You want one? What? Me too. Too bad. Whatever it is, you don't get them. Okay. Okay. And now the sun is coming into Aries season. Oh, yeah, you do. The incense is Red sandalwood, best quality Tibetan incense. Producers Chandra Devi. Good luck finding this stuff. I found this at a little shop on Broadway. You know who might actually carry it or be able to get it for you is Tenzing Momo. Potentially could get this for you. There's the contact information, but that's it. That's all that's on here. You just have to come over and smell it at my house. Ha ha ha. Oh, wait, you can't. No, we're all in lockdown. All right. Okay. The sun is traveling through Aries. Spring is here, and it is time to begin. Time to start, to initiate, and not only to consider the authentic self, but to live it. We individuate. We separate from the cosmic soup, the love soup of Pisces, declaring ourself to the world. We put our head down and we butt our way into the world. Okay, so the first portion of this is new moon in Aries, and the new moon in Aries is on the 24th, I believe. It's just in another couple of days. There is a really great resource that is in your bibliography for those of you who have books or PDFs. I highly recommend checking out the book Moon Phase Astrology by Raven Caldera. That is who kind of sent me down this path of examining these different moons within the different signs and how to work with them. And the names for the moons come from that author. So the new moon in Aries is the infant's moon. We wake up fresh and new and like babies that are just starting out. Curious, naive, brave. Let go of resentment and cynicism from past lives and reach out for something new. Create and initiate. Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a second. And then we have the full moon in Libra. Remember I said when we have our full moons, they're going to be Virgo, Libra, and then Libra, Scorpio. Here we are. And this full moon in Libra happens April 7th, and it is a supermoon. You can look up what's up with supermoons. It's not that big of a deal. They're anywhere from, I think, 1 to 3% larger than they normally would be. So if you can see that with the naked eye, awesome. Okay. Full moon in Libra, aka the artist's moon. Immerse yourself in the arts. Take up a new artistic endeavor. Return to an unfinished project. Display art. Go see art. And consider the relationship between the artist as creator and God as creator. Okay. I'm going to read a piece to you, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit. Yeah, okay. Leading up to Ostara, we purify and destroy parts of ourselves, no longer serving the greater good. We also wake up and fortify the self and the systems around us in preparation for the shift of the energy cycle coming up. A great way to get into alignment as you consider your choices about the coming year is to work on behalf of the group. Do some cleanup around your neighborhood, or very specifically, a waterway or a water resource near you. Now, depending on what kind of lockdown situation we're experiencing in the next 24 to 48 hours or week or what have you, we here in Washington are still free-ish to come and go as we please. So just because there's a 6-foot restriction and social distancing and all of that stuff, you can still get together with yourself or yourselves or with your crew of people if you want, and head to a park, head to a local waterway and do some cleanup work. Leave your phone in your pocket. You do not need to put this on social media. Do this for yourself. Do this for the people that you're with. Do this for the people who will come behind you and discover this beautiful spot that's been tidied up by who knows who, but this is awesome. Do it because it needs to be done. Do it because this is what it is to be a member of a community and not an individual just blazing a trail through the universe. Do it because you know about that connectivity and you feel that responsibility to the group. Do it for that. Just do the work because it needs to be done, because this is the world that you want to live in. Okay. Then spring kicks off with a surge of crackling energy and a thrust of ideas and driving passions and urges for life and arguments about fighting for what you believe in. And yeah, that's Aries. Aries is like that. Dominating most of the Ostara season, Aries demands that we open up and start experimenting with the combination of ourselves and the physical plane. Listen to your body and give it what it wants. Perhaps a rite of passage or a rite of initiation would help you tune into this energy. It's time to summon the same audacity that the apple blossom summons, pushing its tender pink petals out from under the spring frosts, knowing there is a sunny day in its future, if it can just be tough enough to get there. But toughness alone will not turn a flower into fruit. It must be alluring enough to attract pollinators. Okay. So before I start in on this, if you practice astrology, if you do astrology stuff, my recommendation is to pull up your natal chart and look at what you've got going on in the signs of Pisces and Aries. That's where the sun has been and is going to be this season. So you're going to have some extra solar emphasis in those parts of your life, whatever houses are affiliated with Pisces and Aries for you. And if that doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. It's okay. If you want more understanding, I highly recommend checking out an astrologer like Amanda Moreno. She is a local astrologer who is absolutely fantastic. I also do chart readings too, but I think she's better than me. But there are plenty of absolutely free online resources to look this stuff up if something spikes for you and you are curious about it and want to know more. And then I would also recommend looking at the signs of Virgo and Libra. That's where your full moons this season are going to be. Your new moons are going to be wherever the sun is. So your new moons for Ostara season are also going to be was in Pisces. It's going to also be in Aries. And that's coming up in just a couple of days. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. First and foremost, we want you out. We want you out there. I want you out there doing some good for yourself and doing some good for your community, because that's the paradigm shift. That's the thing. We have to just choose as individuals that we're going to go and take responsibility for a situation and then just jump in and do it. And we have to do it knowing that we may never get applause. We may never get credit. Somebody else, in fact, might get the credit. But what's more important? My ego placation? Aries energies would say yes, or my contribution to the group and making the environment beautiful and hospitable for us all. Our Libra energies and our Libra full moon energies would say yes to that urge. And in my opinion, we have plenty of iconoclastic energy in this world. We have plenty of stuff in our culture and in our civilization telling us, do it your way, be your own person, blaze your own trail, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, don't ever ask for help, blah, blah. Like, everybody's supposed to define themselves, do it all alone. And I'm sorry, but that is total bullshit. No human has ever done it alone. Anyone, any of us ever. None of us have ever done it alone. Somebody birthed you. So you didn't just pop out of a hole in the fucking universe. So right there, you're already on a team. Like, you're already a part of a thing that's happening. But just to bring it into our modern era, somebody laid the streets that you drive on. Somebody probably made the clothing that you're wearing. Somebody probably grew or slaughtered the food that you're eating and packaged it and drove it to here for you to just be able to walk in, buy it, and bring it home. And we want to say thank you to all of those systems. we can have a larger context conversation about, do we need those systems? Where are there problems with them? The deeper paradigm shifts that need to happen behind that. So we just move away from that stuff altogether. Maybe I'm a little bit of an anarchist. I don't want to get into it, but but my point is that we also are responsible for maintaining those systems, even if in the moment, we're responsible for helping to maintain those systems, but it's good for us to recognize that this stuff is happening around us, and it's been happening, and other people have been building and maintaining these things and taking care of these things for way longer than we've been around or aware or conscious of this stuff. So none of us are ever doing any of this stuff alone. We are always all together in some energetic mix. It's just the way it is. And so as we're moving through Aries season in particular, like I said, it starts off with that new moon in Aries. Mars, the ruling planet of Aries, is going to go through it this year. A little bit later in the year, Mars is going to retrograde in its own sign in Aries for the first time in about 35 or 40 years. It never does this. It never wants to. And I think that there's a hilarious and frightening metaphor in the idea that Aries does not want to self-examine. Okay. That's fine for everyone else, but no thanks. So I think that there's a real opportunity in this next Aries season for a lot of us to just pop off, or to witness popping off in the people around us. A lot of I, me, mine. A lot of I need this. I'm ready to fight for this. I have to have this. I want this. I, right? I think that there's a lot of opportunity for that. There's opportunity for that all the time in the Western world anyways, especially so right now where we're being faced with shortages of things and this political crisis and everything else that's happening right now. It's triggering for a lot of people, and a lot of people kind of retreat into themselves, and they go with their insect animal brain. They go with their deepest resonances of understanding and information. That to me is very much what we pull out from Pisces season. It's our ancestors speaking to us. It's the insect brain in us, the animal brain in us that's reminding us of like the dangers of the world, and this is how you eat, and this is how you breathe, and this is how you stand up, and this is what language is. But when we have a fear moment like this, when we have a moment that shocks and scares us, those are the resources that we go and dive deep into to go get help. Our instinct, our genetic memory, right? And our genetic memory is like, well, here, dump this endorphin into your bloodstream and let's go. Let's make some stuff happen. Except that this danger that we are experiencing, this crisis that we are facing, is not a fire. It's not an earthquake. It's not violence directly in front of us. It's existential. It's something that we can't see. It's something that may take days or weeks or months to fully play out. It's not something that we can swat at and attack. And that's what a lot of our inherent wisdom is built to deal with, is an immediate and obvious danger. And a lot of our inherited wisdom that we get from our instinct and all of that, our genetic memory and all of that stuff is like, I don't know how to, what? What do you mean just hang out and wait? Like things will slowly appear. No, we can call on ancestors who perhaps lived or died through plagues and other types of weird crises like this, but it doesn't happen too often for humans and in the grand scope of the life of our species on this planet. And so that Aries energy is right there to get ramped up, to get fired up, to get freaked out. But then what do we do with it? Where do we go with it? And it can mutate into, well, I need to carry a gun with me everywhere I go. This is why I vote the way I vote. This is why I don't talk to those people because they're not trustworthy and they do weird shit anyways, blah, blah, blah. So all at the same time, we want to have a deep examination and a deep witnessing of the fear and the fear responses that are coming up for us. And we want to honor that. because those responses have kept us alive in all of our many lifetimes that we've lived, right? And all the many iterations of our species. Those fear responses kept us, is why we are here now today to have this conversation, because somebody ran away from a fire fast enough, somebody ran away from a landslide fast enough, or got out of a flood fast enough, and they were able to do it, right? Okay. And so here we are today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to those instincts, to those ancestors, to those benevolent, scared as hell entities that came before me. Thank you so much. However, a lot of your skills are not necessarily going to help me right now. And the warrior in us wants to find a spear and a shield and get out there and fight it. Except there kind of is no it to fight if we think of just this virus or just this direct situation that's directly in front of us right here. But if we can calm ourselves down, if we can sit in this a bit, we have an opportunity to summon the sacred warrior that's in us that says, I am determined to fight for change. I am determined to fight for something that I believe in and fight for the long term and the long haul. Long term, long haul, very foreign for Aries. Aries wants to talk about now and about 5 minutes from now, and that's plenty. So for all of us, no matter, we all have Aries in our chart somewhere. For all of us, this is going to be a time period that really urges us to go and do something. And when we don't have something to do, that energy can mutate into destructive behaviors, self-destructive or turned out to the community. I'm paranoid now, I'm freaking out, I'm yelling at you in traffic, whatever. And the very best possible thing that we can do is to slow down, be patient, and just keep reminding ourselves, this is scary, this is weird, this is hard. No one knows how to do this right. But if I am amped up, if I do have all this adrenaline, who can I call? Call my senators, call my Congress people, call state and city level officials and tell them, these situations are untenable and I see a vision for a new future. And this is what it is. Let me tell you all about it. Because they don't have anything else to do but just listen to you freak out on the phone. Journal it, perhaps. But all at the same time, this is all coming back to our intention setting stuff that we're talking about as the vibe of this whole season. We want to be very clear about the intentions that we are setting now and going forward. What is it that I'm fighting for? What is it that I want to be connected to? What do I want to let go of? What do I want to bring in? What do I want to be curious about? What do I want to be naive about? Okay. And then last but not least, as we roll through this lunar cycle of Aries season, Aries new moon, Libra full moon, last but not least, we will have a half moon in Cancer, waxing half moon in Cancer, and a waning half moon in Capricorn. And those are going to tickle the North Node and the South Node. And there's been a lot of work with those two lunar nodes in the last 2 years or so around dominance and power and ownership and authoritarianism versus caretaking and health and home and family and guilt around choosing one over the other. And so let that stuff come up for you and witness it and see where that turmoil is for you there. And as I said somewhere else, I know and I understand and I recognize, I acknowledge that routine is a part of some folks' mental health medicine, really, and work. You need routine, and I get that. But where it is healthy for you, when it is healthy for you, allow this to change you. Allow yourself to grow away from your old form and grow into, we don't know, the unknown. That's where we're at. This is the unknown. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about the tarot of the season, and then I'm going to do something else after that. But we are winding down. We're getting close to the end here. Okay. So the tarot, if you are setting up an altar at home of any kind to recognize Ostara, spring equinox, spring energies, Aries season, any of the other holidays or festivals that we've talked about, some very easy archetypes to work with if you have a tarot deck in your house are these 4 tarot cards. I think that they're totally appropriate on any springtime altar, personally. And what we're dealing with here is the Moon card and the Hanged Man, as well as the Emperor and everybody's favorite, the Tower. Okay. This card represents Pisces, and in some systems, this card represents Neptune, and this card represents Aries. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. In this card, this is the Emperor that represents Aries, and the planetary ruler of Aries is Mars, and that is represented by the Tower. Anybody notice, side note, no time to get into it, the crown that's normally worn on top of the Tower. To me, this is very similar to the depictions of Campbell with the city or the turret on her head. Okay. So the major arcana that I'm encouraging you to work with are those 4 cards. And the minor arcana that I'm encouraging you to work with, if you really want to dive into the Piscean energy and really kind of explore where you were and what was happening in this last month, you can meditate with the 8, 9, and 10 of cups. And then going in through Aries season, you can work with the 2, 3, and 4 of wands. Or if these 4 are plenty for you, that's fine. Or even if you just want to work with the Emperor and the Tower, that's fine. That's plenty. Okay. As winter ends, we dream under the moon, awaiting a glimpse of our inner light. We are frozen until the situation changes, thaws out, allows movement and growth. We can get impatient, but we must wait and allow ourselves, our new self, to mature a bit before we present ourselves to the urges of spring. When we do burst forth in Aries, we are totally pledged to this new self and this new reality. We are armed with our sacred vision that we received during Pisces, and we are committed to it, for better or worse. But this kind of intensity can knock our other realities out of whack, and it can even feel like a real breakdown. How might this play out in your day-to-day life? The 8, 9, 10 of cups points to a deeper level of the emotional and intuitive process. We've come to a truth or an understanding about ourselves, a belief or a facet of reality in a way that we just feel on a gut level. And we are now pausing at the crossroads. We are sifting through all the possible directions we could go with this new perspective. And then, bam, the 2, 3, and 4 of wands say, get up, put your shoes on. It's time to do stuff. Your new adventure has arrived. We are a little wary and maybe feel a little off balance, but that's the point. We try on this new version of ourselves that has this new perspective or new belief, and we see what it's all about out here in the body, in the physical world. What is it like to be a person who believes and acts on it? How does that affect our already established relationship and our already established realities? Okay. This character right here is probably the most driven character in the deck. The Emperor has a righteous vision, and he is or they are going to make shit happen come hell or high water. They don't care. They are very individualistic. They are very determined to go it alone and make it happen on their own. And they can be really gruff. They can be bossy and domineering, but to the point of like, get away from me. I've got this. I'll do it myself. And when we think about the way that Virgos can martyr themselves, sometimes we can see kind of a relationship between Aries and Virgo tendencies there to be like, I've got this. No one else would do this ever anyways. I'm the only one that'll live it, you know, all of that crap. Okay. So we kind of have that energy resonating around us right now. And it's definitely emphasized or visualized very nicely within the Emperor and the Tower card. I know nobody likes working with the Tower card. It's not a fun card to work with, but it is a necessary experience. It's a necessary card. And it's a shocking revelation. It's a come to Diana moment. It's a, you know, a clap from the reality that's like, boom, you're wrong. Here's what's actually going on. Okay, it is all of those things, yes. But for me, right now, I think the most important element of what the Tower is or what the Tower does is it is a moment where the universe is saying, you have isolated yourself and you have pushed yourself out onto this little finger of land, and you have built this rickety castle out of what you knew, out of what you had, but you have built this thing out of, you know, mistakes and misunderstanding, and you have completely isolated yourself. It's basically where we are when we're making choices in our life and we're saying, well, I have to go on just what I know. I can't ask for help. I can't ask for guidance from anybody else, and I won't. I'm going to do this myself. God damn it. But we're starting from an ego place and a fear-based place. And we're not necessarily starting from I'm really excited about myself and I believe in myself and I believe in all my skills. Woohoo. You know, we're not starting from a positive place. We're starting from a really like scared and isolated, ego-based, alone, fear-based place. And we isolate ourselves and we throw ourselves into this. And the universe comes along at some point and is like, no, like, let me explain to you how mistaken you are right now. And why I think this is such a powerful card to work with at this time is because everything about what we are experiencing right now feels like it is isolation. We're physically isolated from each other, or we're supposed to be. And yet, the opposite end of our Aries energy, the other moon that we're working with, is Libra. And that Aries Libra thing of I, me, mine versus us, us, us. And the Tower, to me, comes at a moment where the universe is trying to get us to understand you are not alone. We are all in this together. We can all do this together. And in fact, you have to rely on other people. You have to ask for help. You don't know everything that you need to know to get through this. You're going to have to get help and get advice and get suggestions from other people. You're going to see the mistakes they made. They're going to see the mistakes you made. And guess what? We're all humans. We all screwed up. There is no such thing as perfect. So get over yourself. Ego, Aries, all of that. The Tower especially, so ego-based. Get over yourself and let that go and ask for help. Admit to yourself, I did the best I could, but I did not know everything I needed to know. I'm going to have to ask for help from someone else. I'm going to have to connect, and I have to connect on purpose, and I have to put my ego down, and I have to be vulnerable, and I have to open up. I have to. So I think that these are both really, really powerful archetypes to work with. Both the Emperor, who is saying, I can do this myself. I can't, but more importantly, I can have my righteous vision and I can fight for it and I can be determined and unwavering in my fight. Jai Jai Hanuman. But I need to not be an egomaniac and isolate myself and become a martyr and freak out and say, oh no, I'm the only one who can figure this out. No one else can fix this. This is a time for humanity to stop and all of us and look and say, we all need each other, all of us, to do all of it. Like, No one of us is going to do this. We all have to be here for this. But that's also how you birth a new paradigm, is everybody moves into the new paradigm and decides to make the shift. So just that. That's all. All right. So we are getting close. It is 6:56. We've been going for an hour and 54 minutes, give or take. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some stuff. Oh, I stumbled across another page of information. Like, oh no. Okay. I'm going to move through this a little quickly, and then we'll talk about some more things. And in fact, the thing is, I know people have lives, but I don't have to leave, so I can't keep talking. If you want to keep going, I can keep going until I pass out. Okay. Some notes on eggs and fish. And this is just bringing us back to a little bit of our Piscean energies, and because that's the stuff that's behind us. That's the stuff that's burbling and has been burbling in the unconscious. That is the bedrock and directing a bit of our stuff that we're doing here in the conscious world now. Okay. We don't know when or why humans started to dye eggs, but currently we can trace the practice back to South Africans etching and staining ostrich eggs over 60,000 years ago. A common motif found on the eggs was a cross-hatching pattern. For the last 8,000 years or so, eggs have been synonymous with the birth and the beginnings. This idea is the cosmic egg from which all life in the universe springs forth. Hens and rabbits have been the deliverers of these eggs in many myths, but the further back we look into history, we see one creature as the source of the most ancient tales, the serpent or snake, sometimes with wings. The world serpent, who is Tiamat, Typhon, Aduhedo, the rainbow serpent, Shesha, Ouroboros, and 100 other names, holding the world within their coils, biting their own tail, and creating the circumference of the known world. Today, we see eggs as a central theme for Easter, Nowruz, Passover, as well as Ostara and other springtime traditions. And I just want to pause there for a moment and bring you back to the image of Pisces being connected to the feet and Aries being connected to the face, and the idea of a serpent biting its own tail. Many Eastern European ethnic groups still decorate eggs as a religious act during Easter. In the Ukraine, they are called piccininni, and these delicate treasures are made by painting on beeswax in patterns and then dyeing over it, leaving a negative space behind. And of course, interesting connection there with beeswax and our Melissae priests who were dedicated to bees serving Campbell and Attis. Archaeological evidence points to this being a pre-Christian tradition carried forward as a hidden symbol of the goddess, sublimated into Catholic practice like many pagan rites. Popular patterns seen on piccininni are dots, triangles, or curls or spirals, or even a single curl with wings, which of course makes me think of a winged serpent. The curls are an ancient symbol of the Slavic goddess Matisara Zemlya, whose name literally means wet Mother Earth. Let's just enjoy that for a moment, shall we? Okay. She was a great goddess with power over life and death. She was eventually joined with the Slavic goddess Mokosh, whose name probably means moisture. She is a weaver-spinner goddess who also has power over rain, life, and death. She was often depicted as a wet bog. And so there's another rabbit hole to go down of bog bodies and bog bodies that might have been dedicated to this goddess. She is still worshipped in unbroken lines today. Zemlya also means serpent and is the name of an ancient water god. This can also be depicted as eternity bands called meanders or unending lines of waves or ribbons carved or etched around the egg. That's ultimately what we're talking about here, are the patterns that we're seeing on these dyed eggs. Another popular pattern is Berahenia, a goddess of life and death, rain, and fertility, depicted with 2, 4, or 6 arms outstretched. These are called Juki, which means beetle, because the 6-armed goddess looks like the Cyrillic letter for ZH. And this image is fairly similar to the symbol Chi, which is the X and the one line coming through it with a sort of looks like a P at the top, like a P and an X interposed over one another. This image is fairly similar to the symbol Chi the Catholic Church used to represent Christ, also known for his fishy symbolism. We had a really good time talking about all of this symbolism in the Moon Tarot class last month. There's a lot of crossover here. An even more popular motif is a cross-hatching pattern called Reshetto. Now, if we think back to our fixed stars that we talked about in Pisces, Aresha, this means sieve and dates back to Paleolithic times. A reshetto was also a Ukrainian folk instrument. In ancient times, it was a wooden ring hit with a stick called a sieve. Later, a screen made of fish or goat skin, like the ram, the goat, was woven over it and played like a hand drum, but specifically like a kind of rhythm percussive instrument. Alresha is a star in the constellation of Pisces, also known as Tiamat or Typhon, and it means string or chord. Okay, so last bits of stuff here. Forms of observance, if it hasn't been already really obvious what's going on in this. Forms of observance that are traditional from all over the planet for this holiday are honoring young people's first blood or other signs of moving into purity, or puberty, excuse me, no purity here, other signs of puberty. And I would extend that out to anybody who has never experienced a rite of passage that is age or gender defining based. So if you have never celebrated your menses or celebrated coming into an era of life where you might have menses, celebrate that now. It's absolutely totally appropriate. If you are male identifying and you are coming into your manliness right now, like, celebrate that. Absolutely. We don't do a lot of it in the West. A lot of us who experienced periods did it in a lot of shame and shitty environments. And this is a really cool way to kind of re-give yourself back that child experience, that kid experience. Other things to do at this time of year: planting and prepping your gardens, dyeing eggs, obviously, beginning projects in the physical world, like begin a thing physically in the world. Start to make a thing here. Wandering through nature, I will say that for every class. Potlucks. And what I might say about a potluck is do a video conference, have dinner with your friends, just do it at home. It's very appropriate right now. Bonfires. Let's just set everything on fire, honestly. Okay. Spring cleaning. I probably didn't need to mention that. Buying new clothes, if anybody has any money. Flower divination and sex, a really popular, just slide that sex thing in there really quick. Flower divination, very popular practice from the Victorian era, where you would go out and pick wildflowers and then you would come home and look up their meanings to see, like, what did I gather? What did I bring in? Symbols that we want to be working with at this time of year: serpents, rams, rabbits, doves, lambs, phallic wands, eggs, sprouting plants, shamrocks, baskets, babies and childhood, a yellow disc or wheel. We use a giant symbol, like a drum symbol, on our altar. Seeds, lilies, and fleece or wool are all appropriate things to interact with, put on your altar, all of that good stuff. Very quickly, how to create an altar. Your Ostara altar should be filled with spring flowers to welcome in the season, the energy of the season. If it's possible, position your altar where sunlight will fall, or near a window with a good view of the sky. The colors you might use to reflect the colors of spring: lemon yellow, pale pink, bright green, sky blue, lavender, and other pastels. You can bring in these colors with flowers, dyed eggs, candles, cloth, or I always recommend making your own original artwork. I think that's always a very powerful way of witnessing a season and its energy. Other symbols that are appropriate: seeds, a small potted plant, eggs, serpents, baskets. Include something that is a symbol of your youth, like a photo of you when you were a kid, toys, or a piece of candy that you were really in love with when you were a kid. Common elements include something to represent the goddess, something to represent the god, something to represent the four elements: earth, air, fire, water. After that, there are absolutely traditional layouts for altars from different paths of paganism and witchcraft. I always encourage you to use your intuition, but if you're part of a practice, go with that. I'm not going to talk about any of the other correlatives for this time of year, but I would say that working with clear quartz is really fantastic for Aries energy. Working with red jasper is a pretty easy, fairly inexpensive stone to find, and this is a really fantastic stone to work with for Aries energy. Really, I know more clear quartz, but this is really super highly sparkly clear quartz, and that's definitely Aresian in its urges. Garnet is also another great stone to work with, but truly, any spicy foods, any foods or plants that have thorns on them, any plants with red flowers, and any red stone under the sun is really, really appropriate for this whole first surge of power and energy at the beginning of spring. Okay, you guys have put up with me for a long ass time. I am going to read a couple of meditations for you guys, and then we are going to be done. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been really wild. I was really excited to see how this would all play out. It's been pretty damn cool. So, hooray. Okay. During the Aries lunar cycle, we are moving from dreaming to acting. So, we've been in the cosmos. Now we're coming back to the physical plane. It's time to do shit. New moon in Aries. Write down 5 challenges you want to try to conquer this year. Just pick 5. Things that feel like a challenge. Full moon in Libra. Describe the relationship between the artist as creator and God as creator. Or just use the time to make some stuff. Don't even worry about it. Just let the artistic flow. And then these are my 3 other meditations for you to consider as you move through Ostara season. You can do these now or on the new moon or at any time during the next 6 or 7 weeks. Take what speaks to you, leave what doesn't. You are rebirthing after winter's sleep. In the name of the youth, see a vision of potential and possibility. What is that vision? And I encourage you to take some time to sit with that and journal on it if it speaks with you. Do some free writing around that. The passions of love and fear can run deep in us. How do you find a balance between the light and the dark? And last, you are earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. See yourself as a balanced being. Write a letter to yourself from that place. Thank you so much for coming. If you can donate, I appreciate it. Like I said, a portion of the proceeds are going to Real Rent Duwamish. I'm also going to send a portion of the proceeds to the one of the Seattle-based like COVID support nonprofit money pools that are coming together that people are applying to for artists and such. I expect probably the big one that got set up, but you can donate to my Cash App, you can donate to my Venmo, and or just send money to those guys directly. That's fine too. But thank you so much. I was really excited to do this. I was really excited to see how it would turn out. I'm excited that there was 20 plus people here a lot of the time. That was really cool. And I definitely, like a lot of other people, I am experiencing some fear, some financial fear around what is happening, what's going to be going on. I canceled this class. I canceled the tarot class that's happening next week. And I canceled my 2 classes next month, which is about 80 seats, 80 seats amongst all of us. You know, I know it's going to be okay. I know it's, you know, or it isn't going to be okay, but we're still going to get through it. And that's really kind of the thing I think that I've been keeping in mind more than anything is maybe it'll be okay. Maybe it'll be really awful, but we're going to get through this. And we're going to get through it together. We're going to get through it helping each other, and being vulnerable and saying, I need help, and being honest about where we don't know and where we don't have. So I really hope this helped you. I'm around for questions. I'm around for consultations. If you need a reading, I'm around. All my prices are super cheap right now. Otherwise, blessed be and happy solstice. If anybody has any questions, throw them up in the chat, but I didn't see any questions pop up. So, somehow I guess I've answered all the mysteries. And if everything worked out correctly, I think I recorded this. We'll find out, and it will be available probably for free on this channel. I don't think I'm going to take it down. I think I'll just leave it here and let it be here for whoever needs it. But yeah, thank you so much. Blessed be, happy Ostara, and cheers to your new growth. Cheers to losing whatever it is that's holding us back. Cheers to losing the old paradigm, and cheers and blessed be to welcoming in the new paradigm, welcoming in our new form of community and our new forms of connectivity and our new forms of resilience. Thank you so much. Thank yourself for taking this time and being here and doing this with me and doing this all together. I think it's really cool. And that's it. All right. I love you. I got to turn the camera off because it's time for me to get high now. So Mwah. I love you all. Thank you so much for doing this with me. It was really, really cool. Okay. Mwah. Bye.